Okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started here. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Dawkins to.
Okay, we call to order the Cherokee County School District Board Budget Committee meeting scheduled for May the 12th, 2026, noon. As for approval of the board agenda, of the committee meeting agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
Motion, Mr. Cash, I second that. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Number 2, approval of board of policy BEDM, electronic participation in board meetings. I make a motion that we do approve policy BDEM.
And I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 3, administrative update. Dr. Fitz and Mr. Pettit.
Okay.
Okay, well, I will start off with the administrative update, be brief, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Pettit. But you guys asked questions about the budget and positions that were in the budget, and also the suggested raise, cost of living raise for our employees. And so I just want to tell you, what those positions are, what their base salary is, and then I'll tell you my recommendation as far as a cost of living raise. And so we look at the positions that are new coming from the district office that are requested. Number 1 is a compliance coordinator, and you guys should have description and justification for all of those positions. Compliance coordinator and student service department, that costs me $90,000 base salary. Director of Employee and Community Relations, $100,000 base salary. Director of Finance, $100,000 base salary. And Maintenance Supervisor, $75,000 base salary. Now, the order of priority listed, prioritize 1, compliance coordinator would be the position that we feel like is the one that we need the most. Then number 2 is Director of Employee and Community Relations. Number 3, Director of Finance. And number 4 is Maintenance Supervisor. So that is a list, priority ranking, and also how much each position would make. My recommendation for employee salary increase is 3% across the board. That's my recommendation, and so I will turn it over to Mr. Pettit unless you guys have any questions for me about those positions or the recommendation or the recommended salary increase.
And when you say 3% across the board, that means teachers, everyone, including the district office.
Everyone.
Employees in the different offices.
Yeah, that is my recommendation,
That's
but
his
we do
recommendation.
have some scenarios that are different than that
Okay.
recommendation.
But that is your recommendation,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yep. So those 3 scenarios we're presenting for Monday, we're basically going to take the recommended 3% that he discussed as the starting point, and then the 2 scenarios that have a delta, basically what it would decrease or increase the budget is. Second scenario would be 3% across the board, except for assistant principals and principals get a 4%. And then the third scenario is 3% across the board, except for directors and above get a 2%. That's the 3 scenarios. We'll present the delta, meaning the difference in what it would subtract from the 3% across the board budget at the board meeting on Monday, so that you had a kind of a decision point as a board.
What is the total for 3% across the board?
The total budget?
Yeah,
It was the one I sent last Tuesday, so that was let me pull it up here. $108,650,000 budget for 3% across the board. And this budget includes all the positions that we're going to, all the district office positions we're debating on accepting.
$108 million?
$108,650,000 annual budget.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What about the 3% across the board with the principal and APs getting 4%?
The delta is, I believe, 20. Let me see if I can pull it here. I have the scenario prepped.
And while he's pulling that, I think one of the things when you look at principals and assistant principals, many times we lose those individuals to other districts. Want to be competitive with our principals and APs.
Yep.
One of the major focus items that I'm gonna have as superintendent is a lot of professional development for our APs, growing them, training them so they're ready to be principals, and a lot of professional development and training for our principals, because, that's an area of growth also. And so, but the key is to get and keep good people.
Right.
And so that's why, that suggestion is.
Yeah.
Well, our APs have needed a little boost for quite some time.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with that. But what
Yeah.
is the
It's
total
it's
for
not
that?
significant, so I have them three here. Here's the baseline, what we talked about, and then that's the salary total. And then the 4% to APs on top of 3% to others is only a delta of 27,500 added to the budget.
Okay.
And then if we took the scenario where we gave 3% across the board, 3% to assistant principals, but actually gave 2% to directors and above, that would only save 11,284 in the budget. There is not a large roster of directors in the district, so that's why that number is lower. Our director number, compared to other districts, is quite low in title director. So.
Okay. All right.
So that's the three scenarios we're presenting on. The only other thing I had to discuss, unless there's any discussions on the positions themselves that we ranked for the board, is the delta between what was described at the budget workshop and what was sent out last Tuesday. And primarily that delta stemmed from, here it is here, the 60 million. Positions linked to schedules in our software were not translating properly into the projection side. So when I was initially building, I was going off with the projected in our software. When I dug in and did a manual assessment of each lined item, I noticed that basically some of the schedules were not translating over to the proper position. So I did a manual check on every position to ensure that the actual budget reflects 3% on each person's salary and it's not pulling the wrong numbers. So these are the most accurate numbers manually calculated to ensure accuracy. I went through it 3 different times and manually calculated it, and we're working on fixing those projections linked now so that the system matches what the actual 3% salary increase would be. So it really was just a system error in the projection linked to each salary schedule that we're fixing right now.
After doing that, will the food service workers and the custodians, will they remain the same? Because right now they're running, they're consistently the same year to year. Except if you're a supervisor or whatnot.
Yeah.
Will they remain the same? Because I've had people ask me about that. Somebody for some reason was thinking that food service worker were making more than custodians, but when I pulled the salary schedule, they're making the exact same. Will they continue to do that?
They will be. It's a 3% flat to all schedules to include bus monitors, bus drivers, custodians, food workers. They're all 3% baseline to the schedules that you've seen.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And Dr. Fitzpatrick, for you, you said these are ranked in order of necessity. That's how you prioritize those.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so compliance coordinator, we definitely need that this year. Definitely.
Yes, that, and I'll let Bessie speak a little bit on that, but that will give us the opportunity to better serve our students in the building, to ensure that we are doing all that we can, being aligned to help the schools be successful and students be successful.
And with the reporting that SPED has to do to the state and on federal levels and whatnot, we need this position in order to make sure that we stand on top of everything we need to be reporting out.
So there's a couple of, so I just kind of want to give you some background also. If you remember last year, you guys allowed me to have a special education director. So I had to lose a coordinator's role in order to obtain that position. So what has happened is that means that the special education director has had to take on all of those responsibilities of not only a coordinator's role as well as director, which kept director's responsibilities on me as well. The director handles all of that report piece, all of everything that has to go to the State Department, anything that is due on a recurring basis, which is usually monthly, we have to do that. She is responsible for compliance as well. But the compliance, this person is the person who's actually boots on the ground in the school, working with those classroom teachers, making sure they are providing the services, and the services are being provided by our case managers in the schools as well. And also providing support to those general education teachers that have students with disabilities in those classrooms. Schools that have been identified under ATSI because they have a subgroup and are lower performing because of that subgroup in special education. This is that additional person that helps to support those teachers in the classroom as well. And taking on parental concerns, kind of that liaison there within the IEP team for any concerns that they have. They are the person who sits in the IEP meetings of students who are more restricted students, who may have additional services, students outside of the realm of what you may think of as a student with a resource student, a student that may have multiple therapies, that may, we bill for Medicaid services for those students. So this person is in there making sure all those pieces of paper, all of those procedural compliance pieces are maintained in those students' files, as well as the implementation of that plan.
So now, do we have anyone in that role now, or is this an additional person? You will have 2 compliance
So
coordinators?
I currently have 2 coordinators.
Okay, you have 2, so this will
is
be a third.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So how it used to be set up is we had coordinators by grade bands. So I have an elementary slash preschool, a preschool slash speech, an elementary, a middle, and a high. So they all work. When I received the special education director, I lost a coordinator's role. And so this is replacing the role that I was able to gain when I got a director.
Well, see, and that was one of the concerns. We were, with Dr. White, he was like, well, we need to move away from one of these and actually create a director position. So, some board members did express the concern to go back and pick that position back up, sort of like double dipping. But I talked with Dr. Fitzpatrick about it, and he explained to me some of the same things that you just explained. And I just know it's crucial to keep our SPED services in compliance with whatever the state and federal laws require.
Anytime you can mitigate on the front end and be able to ward off any problems and making sure students are receiving their services, it's beneficial on the back end. And we are in a world where we are generating more state complaints, we are generating more due process, that legal piece that just anyone can answer a question to have those folks that are available to be able to answer those questions with parents, with the State Department. Many times I'm able to stop it. The State Department calls and says, okay, this has gone on, can you send me the evidence, can you send me the proof that this in fact did not happen? We're able to do that. Things are becoming much more comprehensive now, to where it's no longer just a conversation that I can have on the phone with a representative to be able to explain the situation. It's now 10, 15-page documents to be able to defend that what we did was accurate for a student.
Okay, I understand that. All right, Mr. Pettit, tell us about your Director of Finance.
Director of Finance was 3rd ranked on the priority list in the district office, the cabinet ranked. So there's really 4 key points to this role that I wanted to quickly cover. So the main driving point here is, I think, savings to the district of expenditures. We're finding that either Title I funds are not being expended to the full amount. There's an 85% threshold rule the state has. So we're not able to claim any of that money that remains. We're awarded an amount, but we can't claim an amount. So we're losing that to the general fund each year to the tune of roughly $250,000 in fiscal year 25 Title I money, and prior years somewhere around that. State grants have the same issue. They actually give you the money on the front end, and if you don't spend it all, you have to send it back in the following fiscal year. I just cut a check 2 months ago from fiscal year 25 money that wasn't spent to the tune of $300,000. So I think the main driving point of this role is to stay on top of all the fund managers of all the different grants we have, which we have many, to ensure the spend happens and the claiming happens so that we can get the most out of the funds that are awarded to us and we're not giving money back.
Okay, and to that I will say, and unfortunately neither one of you were here at the time,
Yeah.
but that was part of the description of what Dr. Sharon Jeffers was coming to the district office to do in the role that was created for her.
Yeah.
So where's the fallout of that? How is that different from what she does? Because
Yes.
that's how we were explained, that is because we got Dean on an audit a couple of years ago for
Yeah,
this
Title
very
I
thing,
audit.
having to give Title I money back.
Yeah.
So that's why that position was created,
Yep.
so that we wouldn't run into that again.
Exactly.
And now you're saying we did it in fiscal year 25. So tell us what the difference is with that, and
Fiscal year
how is
25.
that not coming together?
So 25 was state grant money. Dr. Jeffries doesn't really get her hand in state grant. She's federal, Title I, Title IV, all the title funds. She stays on top of that. We're still working out procedures to fix those audit findings that were multi-year occurring for Title When I'm saying that 300K check, that was purely state grant money.
Okay.
Multiple different grants. I think it was 10 different grants made up that amount. But that's just money the state's giving us for initiatives, and if we don't spend it by a certain date, we have to give it back. So that's separate from the Title I issue.
So now,
Yeah.
give us an example on what type of initiatives.
You have state aid, not state aid to classroom. You have arts and education grant, school safety grant, SERDEP funds. I can't remember all off the top of my head, but I can provide the board the receipt that actually breaks down the funds where we sent back the money, so you can see which funds were underspent. But it's smaller grants. We're talking 50K here, 100K there. We only spent 20 or 30 out of the 50. Now we're sending 20 of that grant back, sending 10 of this. It compiles to an amount where we send it back each year. We're trying to get that down to zero or close to zero.
Absolutely. Mr. Cash, you have any questions?
Mr. Pettit, was this something that we just missed and now we know to look for it going forward? Or was this something that is missed because your staff in your office doesn't have someone who has the bandwidth to do this, meaning that we're going to miss this every year going forward if we don't get this position?
It is a bandwidth concern. It's also a procedural concern. I can't say that it's purely bandwidth, but procedurally, we need better touch points and we need an organizer, and that was the hope for that director of finance, to basically meet regularly with all the assigned fund managers. Every grant has a person in charge of spending that money.
Right.
So we need a better procedure, and this was going to be one of the key components of the director of finance, to be that center point, to manage the spend. What do you have available? Monthly touch points. Let's meet, let's have a plan to spend it, so we're not in May and we're scrambling to spend all this money, which you're running out of time at that point. So it's both procedural touch point need and also bandwidth in the finance department to get these grants, because there is a lot of different grants, and they range from $10,000 to $300,000. So,
Okay.
yep.
So who's in charge of putting the procedures in place to help us get this money spent before May?
For this year, we're working on individual funds and what their remaining budget balances is with my special revenue accountant. Now, this year's kind of at the expiration period of those funds in terms of how we can spend and what's fitting within the plan that we could buy. But for this year, we're kind of where we are, and I haven't had a dedicated person to stay on top of those funds.
And there's no one in your office that you can delegate this out to, for at least for like maybe since it's third on the list, for like another year. Is that can you delegate that out just to get us through one more year, so we were not getting?
Yeah.
One of the concerns that I kept hearing over and over is that we're making it top heavy here in the district office, putting in all these new $100,000 positions. So is it not anyone that we want to kind of spread it out?
Yeah, no, I get it.
You know, you get hit with 4 big positions in 1 year, it's going to be front page on the newspaper.
I got it. Yeah.
So
No, I get it.
we're
Yep.
trying to figure out how to best spread that out. So is it someone that you can delegate that to over the next year and maybe bring this into the next year's budget?
I could definitely bring it to next year's budget. We do have a plan. We're escalating one role, and we're changing the title of another existing role. They're internal. There's no new FTEs for that. We're turning a specialist role into a more qualified staff accountant role. The hope is that we can alleviate some of the accounting burden that bogs down the workload capacity of the department and free up the time to dig into that. Now, this is an initiative regardless of getting a director of finance or not.
Right.
The goal is to spend this money down, but it is going to be more difficult to have those touch points in between our regularly scheduled audits, budget development, regular operations. It does become difficult, but it's still a priority for the department to get this money spent down and not send it back to the state. So we can attempt to make that a priority regardless of this position. So,
Mr. Cash, any other questions?
No questions with that, but I do want to mention I only have 5 more minutes, so I'm not sure how to
okay.
Is it something
do the rest of the meeting. I guess
Yeah.
but that's my only questions for that role. But I guess my other question is the Director of Employee and Community Relations. For that position, Dr. Fox, I know she was doing some things with the community. Who is basically doing these roles right now for that position? Is that just one department, the Human Resources Office? How are those things being met at this point?
Well, with this particular position, it's a combination of 3 things. One is a district ombudsman, which hears community concerns and complaints and resolves concerns and complaints from the community or anyone who has a concern or complaint, that issue is resolved. You know, one of the things that I noticed is, you know, when we have our board meetings, people come and speak at the meeting. How do we follow up? You know, one of the roles of the ombudsman is anyone who has that concern, take that name, and before the week is out, that person's been contacted, talked to, issue resolved, because there's no two-way back and forth. That's just one example. But anybody that has a concern or a complaint, they normally call here and it goes to Student Services, and Ms. Westmoreland's office handles those concerns or complaints. But that takes away from what they do in that office, dealing with concerns and complaints. Also, when we think about the employee relations piece, I've talked to several employees and principals this year, and my question was, you know, have we had someone to address this concern before now, would it have gotten to this point? And every time, no. So this person, you know, when we think about employee concerns, there are a lot of concerns and employees have, but may be afraid to go to their supervisor because that person's supervisor, and not the HR because, you know, that's in the line, the chain of communication, chain of command. But this employee relations, this person deal with it before it become grievances. And so from the community and parent side of complaints and concerns, from the employee side of concerns and grievances, this person resolves all those issues so that it doesn't lead to litigation against the district. And the community relations piece is a piece where it's going out in the community, building more relationships, more partnerships, and that's kind of done, depends on the partnership or the relationship, done by different offices or different people. And so, but this one gives us a strategic standpoint of going out and building those relationships and those partnerships also. And so, three sides: the community relations piece, the ombudsman concern complaint piece, and the employee piece of it. So those are three different pieces of it.
Now, Dr. Fitzpatrick, if that is not approved, what is your plan to still get that done? Those three things done?
Well, the complaints and will continue to go to Student Services and Ms. Westmoreland. The employee side of it, just encouraging employees to reach out to the district office level if they have a concern with their supervisor administrator, and having one of us go over and kind of sit in, and it kind of takes away the neutral third party piece of it. But
right.
You know, we could, you know, do those things. Of course, we wouldn't want Dr. Smith going because you know, when there's a grievance and that sort of thing, you follow that process. Then we won't want me going either because we're in that process.
Right, in the chain, exactly.
So we just find someone to go over from the district office and try to, you know, work with the employee. And on the part of the partnerships, that's something that we're looking at, building partnerships. And, you know, I'm meeting different people, trying to build partnerships. And, you know, I'll continue to do that, but have someone that has more time to devote to it, we'll probably have greater and more partnerships.
Okay.
I know you got to jump off, Mr. Cash. I think I see Miss Carol Gallman on. Miss Gallman, you have any questions? Miss Gallman?
Sorry.
Okay. Miss Shackelford, I see you on. You have any questions?
I don't think I have any questions. I do think the board needs to seriously consider, especially in the position that we'll be in this year, to fund a couple of these positions. I mean, I think the reason why we don't have these systems level supports in place, like communications, like disputes that rise to the level of the board, is because our staff just doesn't have the support that they need, truthfully. I see that where I work. The districts that are the most successful are the ones that have folks in place that can help solve problems before they become real problems. And it's hard to explain that, I think, sometimes when we don't live in that world, like we don't live in the finance world. But I mean, we have a budget of more than $100 million. So we can't just have one guy and a set of accounts payable folks and expect problems to never rise. So I don't know what the entire board, how they'll feel about it. I've looked at it and I just feel like, I think I understand the perspective, and I have that too, is that we don't want to appear to be too top heavy, but I think these will be a couple of investments that will be really smart. I mean, especially hearing that we're not spending a lot of the grant and investment money that we're getting just because we don't have anybody waking up and thinking about it every day. So we've got to get some real systems in place to protect the district.
Anything else?
One thing I will remind you, when you look at the totality of it, we did decrease one position in the org chart. We combined 2 directors' roles into one.
Right.
So we did decrease one.
Mm. Yeah.
So. And then I also think I heard that we're not going to consider raising millage this year. That's off the table now.
It's on the table. It's always on the table, but our recommendation will be to supplement with fund balance.
Okay.
Yep.
All righty.
Yep. Okay.
We're going to get it all done.
Yeah.
Now, so the 3% across the board, that total budget, does that 108 million include these 4 positions?
It does. So the budget
All 4 of them.
that you were sent includes all 4 and 3% across the board.
See, because I don't even recall maintenance supervisor in the last meeting.
The workshop, it was in the workshop, yeah. So every
The maintenance
position.
supervisor was.
Yes, it
yeah.
was. Okay,
We
it
call
was.
it foreman.
Right, it
Maintenance
was
foreman.
on, these
Correct.
3 was on the page together, and this was on the page
Yes,
with something
correct,
else. I
yeah.
remember now. Okay then, okay.
So anything that's cut will just reduce from that amount.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So
with
Okay.
those 4 positions, looking at 108,650,000.
correct.
And what was the budget last year?
Last year, 102,710,000.
Okay. $6 million.
$6 million.
I can write you a check for that.
Cash.
Oh, you won't take my check?
Yep, and
Mr.
6 the year
Pettit.
before. Yeah, 6 the year before as well. Yep.
Ms. Dawkins, really quickly, can we get an explanation for why the budget has gone up $6 million? I mean, I know we're heavy on the personnel side. That's where most of our budget dollars go. But if Mr. Pettit could just help provide some perspective on if it's costs that are up, maintenance costs, healthcare costs, is it workman's comp, or is it purely the state funding the teachers and then we having to fund administrators and classified?
So the majority of that cost increase is salary. We're at about $70 million in salaries. So you're looking at close to $3.5 million salary and fringe of that $6 million. The other amounts is CPI adjustments to utilities. Our SRO costs went up based on overtime for sporting events or anything that they had and extra duty on top of their regular work. So that was another $120,000. Athletic spend increased, as we described at the budget workshop, by a significant amount. So a lot of it's driven by inflation. There's not as much of an increase on the supply and services side, but it is heavy on the salary and fringe, making up a lot of that difference.
The question, Mr. Pettit, the 3% raise across the board, how much is that?
Quantified too,
Yeah,
it is
quantified.
$2.7 million just on the salary.
That's and
Yep, so the fringe will be another five hundred
salary
thousand.
and fringe, so.
3.2
3.2 of that six,
Is-
the difference between last year and this year
is
is
just
a.
purely salary
is a
increase.
salary increase.
2.7 million?
Well, 3.2 with fringe benefits.
3.2 with fringe, and then 1.1 million is new FTEs. That includes all of them, school level jobs that we didn't discuss today, that we went over at the budget workshop. So about 4.3 million of that is either new FTEs at the schools or district administration that we discussed today, or the 3% increase for salary across the board.
2.7 includes teachers, administrators, classified, that's everybody?
That's everybody, yep.
And
Okay.
Fringes is 3.2.
Yeah, with fringe is 3.2.
I got it.
So it's a 4.3 total.
Yeah,
with the-
roughly
with the
in total salary, yep.
new FTEs.
Correct. And then we went over what the costs we had to absorb from 3-year contracts moving to 1 year, ESSER funded curriculums. That's to the tune of about $500,000 just in that. You have about $250,000 in utility increase from CPI inflation adjustment. So a lot of that is uncontrolled costs. So
Okay.
Yep.
You've explained it very well. Any
Okay.
other questions, Ms. Shackelford?
Not right now, no.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dr. Gibbs?
No, I don't have anything else.
Anyone?
Sounds good.
All right. You, Mr. Pettit, that's it for you?
That's it for me.
Okay then.
Ready to
So
adjourn.
we'll move on. We do not need executive session. Dr. Fitz and Mr. Pettit will let us know when our next meeting. So we ask for a motion to adjourn. I'm the only person on here. So we stand adjourned.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.